and I'll go ahead and start with that. So thank you all that responded back to me regarding your preferences on that. On Friday when we met with, when Laura and I met with Cody for breakfast, we were discussing the committee assignments. So this is what we've come up with. So Tammy Mortensen and Chris, you guys will be on the Heritage Day Committee. Tammy and Jeff, you will be part of the Evans Chamber. Jeff and Chris will also put you on the Finance Committee as well. Fred and I will be on the CPAC. Allie will be on the High Plains Library District and the Transportation Advisory Board. And then, of course, Mayor Pro Tem will be on the ones that are for those positions as well. So I think, do you have any questions? Does that go with you? I know Finance Committee meetings are as needed. Sometimes they're in the afternoon, but I know staff will reach out to you and work something out. Preferably it's been on Zoom or in person if you can make it. So,
Mr. Mayor, do you have that written down?
That
Do you have those assignments written down?
I have them written down on here, but I'll email them to you.
Okay,
Yeah,
very good.
I will send you that to you in an email. I just wanted to bring this up to everybody and see if anybody had any issues with that. Fred, so I'm going to keep you on the CPAC, which you're already on right now, with me as well. So, because I think you like that, and I know it works well for you. So, good evening. And Allie, for the committee assignments, we were just finishing it up. You're going to remain on the High Plains Library District, and I'm also putting you on the Transportation Advisory Board. So, I know Tammy was okay with it when I mentioned it to her, so she was fine with what. Does anybody have any? Perfect. And I will send you that email with the committee assignments on that. So,
Perfect. Thank you.
Yep, absolutely. Well, that took all of 2 minutes.
Well done.
So just to go back, which transportation is it? I'm sorry.
The Transportation Advisory Committee, the one that Amanda was on previously.
Okay.
Yeah. I'll send you guys the email update with everything. I just wanted to have a little discussion real quick to see if anybody.
Mr. Mayor, on that Transportation Advisory Board,
Uh-huh.
I do believe that that is a, what date? What time? It used to be 3 o'clock on a Monday by Zoom. But I think that's an appointed position that has to go through a public appointment. I know that when I first served on it, John had to do that for a 3-year term for me.
Okay. Because
So
I know we
if
didn't
we
have to
can
do
look-
that for when Amanda was here, so
Well,
maybe.
I think we were supposed to,
Okay.
but we didn't.
We'll check into that. if
We can
need
look
to.
into that, and if that's the case, we can bring it back to the first meeting in February.
Yeah.
For appointment. Or would you rather?
Yeah, that's fine. Because I know we didn't do that with her if we were supposed to. We never did, and she went to the board meetings anyway. So,
Okay.
if that's something that needs done, we can bring
I
it
know
back.
the High Plain Library did have to be appointment, and we hadn't done it before. So
Okay. That's a simple process. Yeah.
But we did for the interview committee.
the High Plains.
Yes.
Yes.
So, yeah. And she's already on there, so we shouldn't have to do that again, unless they need it every time. But
Well, she was appointed to the interview panel from the city, but if this is something different, then we may have.
yeah,
to-
we'll have to look into the one for the transportation one.
Okay.
So I
Go ahead.
was appointed in 2016, if that helps, I don't know, May or June
Right.
sometime.
Okay. So yeah,
That
go ahead and
is-
email me that list, and then we'll go through every one of them, see which ones have to be appointed, and I'll have that prepared for a future first meeting in February.
Perfect. Sounds good. Awesome. Thank you. All right. Next up, the Evans LaSalle Coordinated Planning Agreement. Hear from staff.
So in front of you, you have what is in your packet, the draft intergovernmental agreement. Our city attorney brought it to my attention that the version in your packet had a lot of red lines on it, and this is a clean version, just if you'd like to see the document without all of the red lines. This is actually one of the most simple IGAs we've ever come up with. LaSalle has been very easy to work with. They initially suggested that we do some cost sharing with taxes or maybe have some coordinated land use of the area. And at the time, my predecessors had told them that we really weren't interested in that, and we were really more interested in just working on the deciding who's going to maintain County Road 35 and kind of establishing a boundary for urban growth for each of us, and that was really going to be the extent of the agreement, and they actually were just fine with that. You'll see in here there's rules for annexation, which is basically if somebody comes to us that's on their side, we send them to LaSalle. If somebody comes to them, they'll direct them to us if it's on the other side of the line. Now there is a clause in here that if a property crosses the boundary, they have the option to go to whichever municipality they'd like. Similarly, we put a clause in here, number 7, for overlapping service areas. While LaSalle's 208 boundary doesn't right now overlap ours, it could be that as they expand theirs, the boundaries along the river are, they cross each other a little bit. Right now, their 3-mile plan boundary overlaps our 208 boundary a little bit, so if they were just to use their 3-mile plan boundary, it wouldn't, they'll have some overlap. So this just says that either entity can serve, whoever is able can serve. Really, really amicable agreement here. County Road 35 is the biggest section in this agreement, basically saying that the city of Evans would, when it's annexed, would be the one that maintains County Road 35, and there are agreements in here about accesses and how far apart driveways should be and things like that. So LaSalle would be able to come up to County Road 35, but they admitted and came into this agreement saying that they didn't think that they could take care of 35. So that's why it's going towards Evans there. On the map, if you look on the, let's see, it's the last map in the packet, the last page. The agreement talks about the coordinated planning area. And originally, our existing agreement with LaSalle covers both of our urban growth boundaries. So that means anything that happens in Evans, we're supposed to refer to LaSalle and likewise them to us, which is a little overkill. So in this agreement, we kind of identified a boundary of where it actually matters to us or to them, what we're doing and what they're doing. So this boundary shows where we'll give them a referral if we're building on our side, and they'll give us a referral if they're building on our side. We did not come up with common design standards, but so really any comments back to the other entity would be advisory. This does show that bottom corner that we talked about at the last meeting on our future land use discussions. That's southeast of Highway 85. That's on the other side of the railroad tracks and the highway, and that we really didn't think we had any intention to serve. And so that has been removed from what Evans would like to serve. But from my perspective, a very straightforward agreement. Please let me know if you have any questions, or our city attorney has looked at this a lot as well.
So the only clarification I had, when the boundary goes through a property line, they can choose who they want to go to. If they come to, excuse me, if they come to us, are we obligated to tell them, hey, you could also go to LaSalle?
It's more of a courtesy.
Okay.
But it does say in here the property owner has the last say.
Any other questions, comments?
Angela, in the original packet, the printing in kind of a yellowish brown, that's all been stricken. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Only other thing is like for the term, because I know it's a 10-year, it states so it will be renewed automatically. Is there like a pause where council can just say, hold on a second, let's look at, because in 10 years a lot could happen.
Right.
So if it renews automatically, I hope that at that point, council is advised, hey, it's coming up for renewal, instead of just renewing.
Mm-hmm.
So we don't get into something that.
That's in there. It says unless either party terminates the agreement during the initial. So if they, coming up, they want to.
And That's if it's terminated,
Right.
but let's say they don't and it just continues going, I just want to ensure that at some point there's a pause, like, hey, it's coming up for renewal.
Oh,
Granted,
yeah.
I won't be here by then, so.
Well, and then my only concern, you said that there was no, standardized fronts or, business, agreements, but I do want to make sure that, or I'd like to see that we, have a list of, certain businesses that are acceptable and other businesses that aren't acceptable. I mean,
And, mhm.
I'd hate to
Yeah.
be surprised with a nuclear waste facility or something. And I know that's a little extreme, but I mean, we
That's a good idea.
work with each other to make sure that each neighbor gets a beneficial, business or growth or development and nothing that's harmful.
I agree, that's a good idea. I'd love to hear if you have any suggestions for what those unacceptable land uses would be. And also, I saw this agreement, I'm not opposed to coming up with some joint design standards.
Yeah.
Our thought on this one, we went back and forth saying, Scott's here, we talked about it ourselves. We could add it in. We tried to write this so that number 6, we could add in any of these kind of things like land uses or common design standards or things that I think of more impacts, like you're saying, like a level of noise, dust, waste, or something that we're willing to have in this area.
Well, I kind of agree with that. It also does say that, agree that all development within the coordinated plan area should be compatible with respective communities' master plan as defined by the section
Okay.
and everything like that. So for me, that's basically,
Yeah.
if a development's gonna come in there, whether it's in Evans or LaSalle, they're gonna have to meet whatever design plans or code is for each respectable town. Now, if it crosses the border, obviously, then that's something that the two entities would have to work out, but I think,
But if it's on the border there and their design plan and their plan is, high industrial and our plan was where we're gonna put homes,
right,
I just want to have some kind of a compatibility along that border.
right. No, I yeah, no, I'm getting what you're saying on that. Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, that would suck if you have a
Yep.
meat packing plant and then you're putting 200 homes across the street.
Right.
Yeah, no, I get that 100%.
Well, and looking at the original document before it was redlined, it looks like the LaSalle contingent feels the same way.
Yeah.
Good.
That they would like to entertain some of those. So if you'd like, staff can work up some ideas for what those unacceptable land uses could be, just the simplest of terms, and then we can talk to their staff as well and kind of
Yeah.
back to you what that idea would look like.
And that be a part of like the 10-year IGA? Because then
Mhm.
it'll prompt everyone to say, hey, it's 10 years is coming up. Is this compatible with their area?
Mhm.
So.
That's fine.
Okay.
I just want to say thanks to LaSalle and for our community working together to get this agreement taken care of. I know LaSalle's been a great neighbor and a great partner for us and everything, and we've never had any issues between our two communities, and I hope it stays that way. And it's glad to see that we're able to work together and come to an agreement that benefits both communities. So thanks to them and thanks to staff for putting this together.
Thank you very much.
All right, next item number 3, discussion of the status of the cemetery. We'll hear from staff. Sir?
Thank you.
So thank you and good evening, Mayor and Council. the purpose of bringing this item to you for discussion is upon looking at the availability of grave spaces for sale at the cemetery as well as columbarium niches, we are getting to a point where we are starting to fill up. And so this item is basically essentially to get some direction from council as to what you would like to, what action you'd like to move forward with the cemetery, if any at all. So currently we are only selling plots in replat 3 and replat 4 in the cemetery. As of the end of 2023, we were down to 299 grave spaces. More alarming though is that currently our columbarium, we have 5 available niches left. As of the end of last year, we had 10. We sold 5 of them very quickly last year, which upped our average sales for those. And right now, we would be looking at the columbarium being completely full within the next 2 years. We did have some, based on the numbers that Curtis was able to put together on average number of grave spaces that are for sale per year. Obviously 2020, the COVID outlier, really did increase that average number. So in putting the information together, if we omit the outlier, the 299 grave spaces would basically be sold out in a little over 29 years or by the year 2053. And that's not including grave spaces that are already sold but are currently reserved for interment. The average number of niches sold in the last 10 years has been 2.6 per year. However, with the 5 that went last year, that brought our average up to 3.2. So again, with only the 5 remaining, we'll pretty much be sold out in 2 years if we continue with just keeping the existing one. So the addition of a new columbarium, if council decides to go that direction, would continue to offer that option available. And when we have been talking with different monument companies, specifically I've been working with Norman's Memorials out of Greeley. They have recently done some columbarium niches for the Eaton Cemetery. So based off of that information, he had given me some quotes on that, which were provided in your work session agenda. What he was looking at specifically, and which appears to be kind of the trend these days, are a 64 niche columbarium. Our current columbarium only holds 48 niches. So this would be a little bit larger to accommodate a little bit more room. So with that, information was provided in your packet that discusses different options that are available. What we would be looking at is adding a columbarium to match the existing color of the columbarium that's currently in the cemetery. Based on the fact that now they have the 64 niche columbariums, that it would be 1 row higher than the current one that we have now. So currently we have, it's 3 high and 8 across on each side. So this one would be 4 high and then across. So it would be just a little bit of an offset on there. But in looking at the areas that we would even be able to accommodate another columbarium would be kind of along that 11th Avenue in replat 4 where the existing columbarium sits. Looking at the cost of the columbariums that were provided, Norman's Memorials provided a quote for an octagonal, which is I think about 5 high. So Curtis had handed out pictures of our existing columbarium. Then the octagonal is 4 high, but it's completely circular. It may actually take up less grave spaces than if we put a rectangular columbarium as we currently have. Along with then the pricing for the Superior Black, the China Black on Black, or the China Black on Gray. If you when you're looking at your pictures in front of you, I think the closest you're gonna get is gonna be the China black on gray, or maybe just a hair lighter stone color on the perimeter of the columbarium. So with that, the equivalent of 8, if we were to do an rectangular columbarium, we would be losing 8 grave spaces to accommodate that. However, based on the numbers that we have been provided just on the estimates, depending on whether we want to go with the octagonal or the rectangular, we could, and of course the color, we could still gain unrealized gains from the 8 grave spaces that are no longer available, and bring in a net revenue of from $8,100 to $35,100 in profit if you're looking to add another columbarium. So because the cemetery is nearing capacity at current rates, all the columbariums niches will be sold out, while grave spaces will be sold out in approximately 29 to 39 years. So what we're looking from council for this evening is direction on if you would like us to pursue moving forward with adding another columbarium to the cemetery to extend the life to kind of match that of the lifespan of the actual grave spaces that are for sale, or whether you would like to just let the cemetery sell out and then just maintain it as we do for the perpetual care. So I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
What are you thinking? Because the one, so where Plat 4 is, it's kind of next to the road. Well, so if you come in, you know where the circle is?
Yes.
You come in and you park, and then you get off, and it's kind of, if not if you're facing, is that 11th? So it's to the left of it. So you're gonna align it with that one? Or where would you place it? Because there's a big, beautiful tree right there. So I'm just curious of where would it go, or would it go against Highway 34?
So one of the issues that we would have with adding a columbarium to the cemetery is going to be the installation of it. A 64 niche would be large to a point where we would almost have to shut down 11th Avenue to bring a crane in to be able to place a columbarium. And I think the most, the area that would make the most sense to do that would be near to the columbarium where it exists now along 11th Avenue. There's a lot of those grave spaces that are still for sale, and I understand it's close to the road, but so is the other columbarium. The one now it's along a maintenance aisle, so it's not paved, it's just grass and dirt that it runs alongside of. But there have been grave spaces that have been sold right around that immediate area that would not allow it to be put right next to it.
Okay, because I know, the reason why I know about this is because my grandma's grave site's like close to it. And so, yeah, okay. No, that would be good.
Any other questions, comments?
Yeah.
Good.
I believe in one of our work sessions not too long ago, I brought in this 24-year-old report on non-potable irrigation on city property, and I was told that the cemetery was on non-potable water, and you were quoting a commercial treated water rate in this report.
That's the rate that I got from Sam to use, our utility billing specialist. So I can double check with that. So it would be less if it would be, if it is the non-potable system. But
Well, I'd sure like to find out for sure. I think Ephraim told me that it was not pot.
I doubt it's on non-potable because it's above the ditch, so we can't.
it's not.
Is that? It's not.
Not potable. It's always been potable.
And do we have any kind of a price comparison with other cemeteries in the area? Are we within the general ballpark figures for other cemeteries for various bases.
So Norman's Memorials had just installed 264 niche columbariums at the Eaton Cemetery and had provided me quotes on those. Those were lighter in color and a little bit less expensive because of the lighter color to the material. So the information on the numbers provided in here are based on the matching our existing columbarium, which is the darker black.
No, I mean, how do our prices for the grave spaces compare to?
For other, we are like the second lowest in northern Colorado right now. What we're looking at is approximately every 3 years having the cemetery fees increase by 5%. The last time that it was increased was in 2022, I believe. And that went up approximately 5%, so we'll be looking at doing another 5% increase for the 2025 budget.
So I'm open to whatever council wants to do. My personal thing is, I just think the location and the size of our cemetery and how much work it would be to go around our trees that we have there. I do know a lot of the people have bought their grave sites there because of the trees. I just feel like I would like to just leave it the way it is and not get another one. And when those 5 are gone, they're gone. And then just, you know, obviously we'll have the extra 8 grave sites there too. But I just, that's my personal thing. And I am open to whatever majority of the council is. I also want to go to another thing that you have in here about, I just think that the city, do people, why would someone buy a cemetery? And I don't think we should be selling our cemetery. I think we should be counting it as a park and maintaining it.
So I was told when I first came on board here years ago that Moser Funeral Home had at one point approached the city about purchasing the cemetery and taking it over. And he agrees with me. Why they would want to do that, I don't know. And I don't know if they would even be interested in that at this point. But it's information that was provided.
And yes, once all of these sites are sold, you know, it's going to be a city, you know, liability instead of an income producer. So that's why I was wondering why they would want to buy that, because once they're all sold, they're sold, and they would have to keep it up at their expense, which I don't think they're going to make enough money to keep it up. But I just see it as another park expense for us, and we just need to keep it and maintain it the best we can.
Well, the area that I'm looking to add, if council wants to add another columbarium, would be where there are no trees, which is that area right there along 11th Avenue.
So would we open ourselves up to vandalism then?
We get vandalism there now as it is.
Yes, I know, but encouraging more vandalism on 11th Avenue. I'm just throwing this out so that we can have a discussion on it.
Yeah, I wouldn't know how to answer that question.
I don't think that people are gonna vandalize, trees are gonna die, move, we have a cleanup crew. The report was well put together, I really appreciated it. I think that we should do it. I think we should do it for our citizens. It's a small capital investment that will, and I think the trend is going to this type of burial. So for us to at least have that option for our residents is important, and I don't think anyone would turn a nose up about how much it would cost. But that does bring me into another question, if we could fact check how much we are actually spending per week on maintaining this facility. You had mentioned it's $1,400, and I did a little bit of math and figured out that this is like almost 8.25 acres, and at that rate, that's about 77 labor hours a week in taking care of 8.25 acres. Is it really $1,400 a week?
Including fuel cost and labor hours, yes. We're turning around every single headstone and mowing that entire
I was just shocked to see that figure, because an average lawnmower can do and we might be getting off subject, but an average lawnmower will do 1 hour for an acre. An open space, absolutely, and we have obstacles to move around, but 77 labor hours a week seems like a big chunk. And I was just shocked, and I just wanted to make sure we fact check that. It seemed like a lot of numbers to mow around.
It can't be that in the wintertime.
Mm-mm.
It's quite dense.
Yeah.
The cemetery is quite dense. They're quite often. So yeah, it's just getting around
Yeah.
a lot of things. But I do agree with getting another one.
No, it would have
And
to
the
be
reason why is because, as mentioned, for our citizens, I think, some, people who want to be buried in their city, that they've resided, X amount of time, and it's important to them. And I think this will provide that longevity that we need, and also extend the time when we have to have conversations of where are our citizens going to be buried. I think we should do this.
So I had one other question, and I'm going kind of even a different route. Is there a possibility that you could do 2? Because
I
if
agree
we're
with that.
giving, if we're only giving up 8 grave spaces to get 64, and I agree that people do want to be buried in their city, and so if we can give that opportunity, plus get the benefit of postponing when it becomes strictly a liability, I would be interested to know if there were spots to have a second one.
I agree that a second one would be beneficial, but I would disagree that we invest in it now. But I do think that if there's a way that we can reserve for future expansion to kind of get the run rates in alignment together, because 23 years versus 2.2 years, you had mentioned. So to at least try to find, I think that we will have this conversation again, not when I'm here, but for a future expansion, I think is valuable.
So, Mr. Mayor, Council, if I may, one of my suggestion to you, if this is the interest of the City Council, tonight, the intent tonight is to plant the seed, to have the initial conversation. If the City Council is interested in a columbarium option, then my recommendation would be to bring this back here in a couple of months to the 2025 budget work sessions, where we could dive deeper into the cost, not only of the acquisition, the actual columbariums, whether it be 1 or 2, but also what are the full costs of installation that we need to be aware of. That way, if the City Council is interested, we can work these into the 2025 budget, because we do not have it budgeted for 2024. So that would be my recommendation to the council.
I think there's definitely interest in it from the majority of the council, so yes, let's bring it back. Not one of my favorite topics to ever discuss is this type of things, but I like the octagonal design with the China black. But yeah, let's bring this back and see what it would look like, whether it's 1 or 2 to budget and how we can utilize
Agreed?
that.
No. Agreed.
And I thank you for the report. It was a very good report.
What's that? I'm sorry?
I said, thank you for the report. It was a
Yeah,
very good
absolutely.
I
report.
have another question, because I know the China black is like the facade of it. So is this the raw, like the actual shell of it? Is that also granite? It looks like a raw granite, but I'm not certain if it's like a limestone, because I would be curious to find out what type of product that we can find for like in essence, the shell of it.
Looks like
that would be
limestone.
less. And because it could be like that sandblasted granite. So I'm just curious, because it makes a big difference.
So what I'll do is I'll bring back additional options, not just in the black color, but other color options that are available as well. I was looking at the black to match what we have there existing.
That's good. I'm just speaking like, what I mean,
Right.
like the shell of it, like where, the casing of it, what the surround.
I think she'll come with some ideas.
No, I'm
Yes.
just curious. if
Phantom
there's other
matchy-matchy.
ideas. Yes, that's something that's, more cost effective.
Right. So I'll bring back several different options when it comes back for the budget work session. And I do appreciate your time and your consideration in this evening. It is not an easy subject to talk about. However, we are getting to that point where it's getting critical. So I did need to bring it to your attention.
I
So
appreciate it. No, yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, Fred, did you have one last comment?
One
Yeah.
more. I think this council should take a look at maybe trying to be forward thinking on trying to identify a site for, potential site for an additional graveyard
I agree.
somewhere.
So if you're looking at possibility of getting a second cemetery, that is a planning process that takes about 10 years. So that would be something that we would need direction, maybe at the budget workshop, to start looking at available, land where we could have a second cemetery. Obviously, it wouldn't be anywhere near the existing cemetery because that's all landlocked. So, but if that's a direction council wants to go, we can definitely start looking at and planning for opening an additional cemetery.
Well, if we decide to do that, we can bring it up during council discussion, and if that's the case, we
I
can.
mean, that's 29 years from now, so
Yeah.
even if they,
Especially with the knowledge that the city clerk has, that it's a 10-year planning process to get it done.
Right, yeah. No, it's something we can bring up during council discussion. If the majority of us want to go that way, we can have it brought up for a future work session or doing a retreat or a budget work session or something like that, so.
Thank you.
Thank you, appreciate it. All right, lastly, we got the introduction to the AE2S team for the wastewater treatment plant expansion projects.
Yes, Mayor and Council, as you know, that later on this evening in the business meeting, we'll have a business item for you guys to consider, the design contract for the wastewater treatment plant expansion project. And so in order to start this process, what I've asked Mark to do is to bring in our engineers from AE2S so we can have a quick introduction. I think relationship building, especially for a project like this of this magnitude, is critical. So to bring in our engineers from AE2S to begin that relationship building process. As we go through the design process, what I've asked for is 30, 60, 90% design reviews with the city council, so you guys remain a stakeholder throughout the entire design process. So once everything is handed out, I will go ahead and turn it over to you guys.
Thank you. Well, I was gonna start it out and just introduce these guys, and I got a big mouth, so I don't need a microphone. So this is Brian Gaddy, and then Jose Velasquez and Phil Sack. We've been working with these guys on a couple of different projects. They helped us out on some sewer modeling for the south side of the river. You remember back in 2020. And they're also on call with us to help us, and they developed or updated our 2010 water model to be current with what we have today. And it's up and running, and now when we need we have a development coming in like Liberty Draw, we can take that development's water lines, put them into the model, and make sure they're sizing the water distribution lines correct. And that's what these guys are currently doing for us and have done for us for the last couple of years. So from a professional standpoint, these guys do great work. They're interested in the community as a whole and not just the project. So they've been really helpful in looking at this. Even when they don't win a project, they give me good ideas on how to make the project better. Because they proposed on a couple of other projects which they didn't win. So with that, I'll turn it over to these guys and let them get started to tell you about AE2S.
Perfect, thank you.
Just doing a quick overview and.
Thanks, Mark, for the introduction. My name is Brian Gaddy. I'm the operations manager for Colorado for AE2S. Thank you for having us back. As Mark said, we've done a couple things with the city of Evans, and really thrilled to be helping you on this, I'll just call monumentous project that you have coming up here. I'm not going to talk too long, but I'm going to turn it over to Jose, who's going to be your project manager for the engineering design lead. With that, again, thank you for having us, and please feel free to ask any questions that you may have. You don't need to sit and let this be just us speaking. It can be interactive too. So if anything pops up while he's talking, feel free to bring it up at that time. So.
Thank you.
And I'm going to start off with an apology, which is I'm a hearing aid wearer, and Saturday morning I got up and put them in my ears and they weren't working. So Monday morning at 8:30, I took them to the audiologist who said, yeah, they're broken. We don't have any loaners. So I am I'm a little bit at disability, and I apologize for that. So if you see me kind of, my right ear works much better than my left ear. If you see me doing that, I apologize for not looking people right in the eye. But well, yeah, like everybody said, we've been committed to this project. Essentially, I will say that AE2S hired me for this project. I'm a wastewater engineer, have been one since the 80s. I'm a Colorado born and raised, went to the University of Colorado. Sorry for anybody CSU grads. And then I got my master's at Stanford. But I've been doing this for more than 40 years and focusing mainly on wastewater. So, I feel like I'm very well prepared to do this. It's a very exciting project too, because you've got a lot of facilities, but you have some challenges that are emerging, I'll say. Those include much higher strength wastewater, nutrients that are, going to get limits that are getting cranked down quite a bit, contaminants of emerging concern, PFAS, forever chemicals, and what's going to happen there. So, it's a time that's probably critical in every wastewater utilities cycle that they make some good decisions. And there's always the possibility of using it as a resource and gaining something from it. So I've done several projects now with renewable natural gas. So, I'm always been excited about watching utilities turn around and actually make something out of what used to be a waste. So it's just a great time. We also understand how the city has proceeded to date with, retaining Ditesco as an owner's engineer or an owner's advisor. I think that makes a lot of sense for a relatively small utility that's biting off a pretty big project. Going the construction management at risk approach on a facility like this makes a lot of sense, because they can help in making design decisions with, well, that's there and this is how we can do it to make it more efficient. So working with a CMAR is probably a great idea. That does bring some challenges, because CMARs right now, particularly the good ones, are pretty busy. So they don't have to be exceptionally cost competitive. So we have to work to make sure that we're getting you a fair price. And that gets down to the issue of budget and sources of money. So there's sort of two ways to work at this. One is to make sure you don't overspend, and the other is to find new sources of money. And we do have funding specialists on our team, in our company, and she sits here in Colorado. She actually works in Grand Junction, but she's on the team, and she'll be on this job to help us identify the funding path to make this as affordable as possible. And really, at the end of the day, it's deliver the project on the schedule that meets Mark and Robbie's needs and your citizens' needs, and the budget that you can afford to move on into the future. So if you could, we actually took this, I can't take credit for any of this. We stole this from you guys. But, I think you have it up on one of the displays, what you define as a successful project. And we thought it was a great idea. So we took a photo of it. We based our whole approach on how are we going to do all of these things, meet and exceed the stakeholders' expectations. Mitigate risk, and so we're going to we can talk tonight, or we'll be talking throughout the project about maintaining a risk register, looking at ways to mitigate that risk, who is taking the risk, and how do we handle addressing paying for that risk. We want to make sure we get all the stakeholders, so it includes citizens, users, people in this room, people that may not even know what's going on. We always want to be positive. I'm the project manager, so meeting schedule and budget is probably my number one goal. Philip is going to help me because we've assigned him as a design manager, so he'll be doing kind of the nuts and bolts stuff, the making sure that I's are dotted and the T's are crossed. We also have a QA/QC person that's separate, not involved in the day-to-day work, so that we have a third set of eyes. He's an engineer who's been to your facility 3 times now. He knows what's going on there. And then we have one other person on the org chart up on the top that I'd like to, Yarda Solch. And Yarda, we're calling him assistant project manager. He's got a really good relationship with Mark. He's established our relationship with the city. He's a great communicator. I'm going to rely on him to help me make sure I am giving you timely information and giving it to you when you need it and how you can use it with options. So, I mean, I could spend time on every one of these people, but I won't. I mean, they're all pretty much locally based, except for 2 or 3 people on the list. We're using them because they're a specific skill set. So our structural engineer is not in Denver. Our electrical engineer is here. We've already actually helped Robbie with an INC issue that came up because we have our INC person sits in Denver.
INC.
Oh, instrumentation and controls, I'm sorry. So it's the computer side of how the facilities operate. We do have some consultants. We have an architect. We have a geotechnical engineer. And geotechnical is one of the challenges that will be faced here because you're right down on the river, you're in groundwater, where the biosolids processing facilities are planned to go is in a reclaimed lagoon. That can be an issue. So that we're going to jump on that right away. We've also got somebody on the team who has specifically worked on lagoon closures in Evans. That's Catherine Vollmeyer from Bronco Environmental. So Catherine will help us make sure we talk to the right regulator because that closure is actually regulated by a different group at the health department than the water quality. That's the solid waste group. So sometimes those 2 groups don't talk to one another. And so she knows who to talk to and how to talk to them. Otherwise, a surveyor that we've used multiple times. Brian, in addition to being the operations manager, is a civil site engineer, and he works on projects every day. So he'll be leading that task. And then I guess the last one here is Philip. Philip is a relatively new AE2S person. He has moved into the design lead role. I worked with him first back in the early 2000s. We worked together at a firm called RTW that became Tetra Tech. So we've known each other for coming up on 20 years now. So I know Phil pretty well. He's a nuts and bolts, detail-oriented engineer who wants to get you to the right solution. So I really trust working with him. So, what we view as the biggest risks right now, achieving the additional capacity, you need additional nutrient removal and organic removal capacity. Your flow is really not going beyond the hydraulic capacity. And that's a little new. Most people think in terms of the capacity of a water or wastewater treatment facility in terms of what's the flow through it, MGD, million gallons per day. But with wastewater, that's not necessarily the only control. It's can you remove enough biochemical oxygen demand, nitrogen, phosphorus, and in today's world, some of the more esoteric contaminants like PFAS. We're getting some metals such as selenium being an issue because it's an aquatic toxic element to young aquatic life. So there's some concerns about that. But we're going to look at all of those and make sure that you can get the capacity you need. We've reviewed the current wastewater utility master plan update. We think it's a solid document that is a really good basis for planning, but we also have in our approach a concept of let's take a step back and look at what the decisions were made to make sure that those are the good, solid decisions before we move forward. You know, I'm not questioning the previous engineer. I just want to make sure that it's the same decision or a decision that we would make and that will lead to success for you guys. I've already mentioned the lagoon rehab. You know, anytime you work in a lagoon like that, you're going to come up with, you know, poor soils, possible contamination. It's been used as a sewage treatment lagoon. I have talked with Catherine about the other one, and she feels as long as you leave it in a industrial use, not open to the public, you're probably in good shape. But we want to make sure of that. And then the last one is kind of lumped into just the current economic situation. The supply chain is still not good, particularly for electrical and power equipment. I mean, things that we used to say, oh, this is 2 years out, or 2 months out, is now 2 years out, and it's taking longer than that, unless you want to pay a premium. So we need to look at how those all come together. And I think it's a great opportunity, the fact that there's a CMAR on the team, so that we can understand where those costs come together. And we have Ditesco, who has worked in that environment and can say, yes, we trust that, that's a good solid decision, let's base it and let's move forward. So those are sort of the three big risks. A small risk is it's a big team for a relatively small job, which is one of the reasons we have a couple of people up there in the project management box. And then project management to me is all about communication. Talk to you as early as possible and be clear, open, and honest. It's better to know about it early and not try to cover it up. So I promise that I'll do that. And I'm going to ask Yarda and Philip to some degree to whack me over the head if they think I'm not.
Don't worry, I'll whack.
I didn't ask him.
Well, I appreciate you bringing that up, because one of the things I want to ensure going through this whole project is that we are expanding the facility to meet not just the in the city limits of Evans,
Right.
but those that we serve that are outside and our future growth and expansion. Because I think with the last time what happened is the numbers were underrepresented. We were given a growth of like 1.9 or 2.1%, which we all kind of were like, no, that doesn't seem right. But they also did not include those areas that we serve that are also not within the boundaries of Evans and our growth boundaries as well. So when we go forward to this project, I really want us to take a look at those numbers and say, well, right now we're seeing, we'll just use this for an example, growth is at 3% when it's really more of 3.5, maybe in 4, because we know Weld County and Larimer County are the two fastest growing counties in Colorado. And I don't want to be in a position where 2 years from now, once we expand it, we're in the same position we were when we brought the new wastewater treatment online, where we're already talking
Understood,
about that.
right.
So,
Well, I think
If you want to
did
really get
question.
into my overly long resume, I actually worked for a project for the North Front Range Water Quality Planning Association back in, I think, 1994. And it was all about regionalization. And I learned during that project, the South Fort Collins and the city of Fort Collins and the Box Elders and the Windsors, they all have different approaches and different goals in mind. So another promise to make is listen to everybody and get everybody to the table.
yes.
So you said you didn't want to question the previous engineer, and I would like for you to question the previous engineer. I would like for you to take a look at that and make sure that what you guys are doing currently is up to date and accurate, so that we're not in this position
Right.
to expand. I would also like to know, you talked about different options too, the natural gas. I mean, I think we're really interested in that. And I'm also interested in if we have a smaller expansion, the smallest expansion that we need, but maybe with more maintenance. I know we take out a lot of sludge now. And at $650,000 a year, it's gonna take 53 years to get to $35 million. So, I think that, if you look at it and give us your honest opinion in a new light, that would be very reassuring for us that have been here.
The third one down on that list is the solids processing alternatives. I've worked on, they recommended, and they even come out in the plan, and when I say they, I mean the previous consultant. You know, with the autothermal thermophilic aerobic digestion, ATAD, but they say this needs to get revisited. I've worked on 4 ATAD projects, but I've also done anaerobic digesters and standard, which is why I brought it up. I think there are some opportunities. It's another area of emerging and changing economics, because when I worked on the one in Grand Junction has been running their renewable natural gas program longer than any other wastewater utility in the state. And they looked at it and it just never penciled out. It was like, no, we can't do it. It's just not there. But then they made the decision to do it more for the benefit, the non-economic benefit. You know, well, look what we're doing for the community. Well, and then EPA changed their rules and developed the Renewable Identification Number program and the Renewable Energy Credit program. And it turned around and they could sell those RECs and RINs, and actually got the project that originally had like a 12-year payback, which is a very long payback, but it turned out into about a year and a half when they started to be able to sell RECs and RINs. Now that's a market and it fluctuates, so you need to watch what's going on, but it's an opportunity that needs to be considered. And so that, you know, that's one of my pet projects. I sealed the drawings on the one in Boulder. So it's an area of biosolids processing that's near and dear to my heart. You know, and I will be honest, this is probably my swan song as an engineer. I'm going out, I'm pretty close to getting, you know, retirement. So I've shed most of my other project responsibilities. People come and ask me stuff occasionally, but this is my job. And I want to go out on a successful note. I mean, I've been doing it for 44 years. I started surveying when I was 18 in the Arapahoe National Forest. So, you know, I want this to be successful for myself. I mean, it's not right, but dang it, I'm going to say that. And for you. I'm being selfish, and I apologize for that.
No.
Thank you.
I think I've talked about all of those things. The next one is just a quick, the overall how we're going to go at our project. You know, I mentioned the verification step. So that's meeting with Robbie and getting his input and his operator's input from what they learned during the master plan. We'll also start our data collection effort, which is a geotechnical and environmental sampling. We'll do some evaluations. We have workshops almost every 2 weeks. Now, some of those will be in person, but some, to save money and control costs, will be virtual. But then we won't get into design until we've made that evaluation, written a confirmation memo. That memo will also serve as the basis of design to go to the state and start the permitting process as well as the funding process. I will be honest and say I have not kept up with current, you know, this week's issues in the funding side of the water and power. Yes, ma'am.
I have a question because there is funding for training and technical assistance, support small rural drinking water and wastewater systems. You have to submit the application by the 18th, in 2 days.
I'm sorry.
You have to submit for funding for this in 2 days. So the 18th is the deadline. So I was just curious if you know, if you're aware of that.
We actually brought that up, and I think
We've submitted for some other projects with funding, but that's not gonna happen in 2 days. But
just curious.
we are looking at, obviously, the SRF money is available, it's just reduced from what it has been in the past. It's $19 million per project. And then there's WIFIA money, which is another source that we're gonna look at from a funding perspective. And AE2S has a guy on their crew, Rocky Schneider, who is the guru in finding money. And he's pointed us at various sources for money for other projects, even when he wasn't working for us.
Yep.
So we are gonna find the money, it's just gonna take some time and some research, and these guys will help us, but I think that's gonna fall more on internal staff with some questions asked to Rocky.
Yeah,
So
well,
that is gonna move forward.
we'll support that, and you've got FCS to help with that as well,
Yeah.
so.
So, I mean, this one, in essence, the deadline's the 2nd of February, but on the 18th, you just have to submit, specific things. So, I mean, it might be something you wanna look into, and I just
We
wouldn't-
did look at that
I just
quickly a couple of weeks ago, actually.
Yeah,
And we decided that really wasn't a great opportunity at this point.
okay, I'm just.
But that's the kind of thing that we need to do, is when opportunities come up, pay attention to them. And it's a very quickly changing game right now. You know, the money's here, oh no, it's not. Now you have to go this way. And there's some decisions that come along with those. Like if you do WIFIA money, it's got other requirements. And FEMA grants, for example.
No, see, she's gonna leave us if you say that.
Okay, but other
Don't
sources
say-
of grants. you know.
Yeah, we don't wanna make her
Don't
mad.
say-
We don't wanna make her mad.
Yeah, when you get a grant, there are conditions on them. Sometimes those conditions are harder to meet and make it less attractive to use those sources of funds.
And then
I'm not gonna claim to be the expert in that, but we have people who can.
the congressionally directed spending may come out again.
Yeah, the earmarks.
The earmarks, that may come out again, and at that point, when they do come out, this project would obviously be on top of the list.
Perfect.
We might have to hire a lobbyist, though. I'm not joking.
Yeah.
South Platte Renewed,
Yes.
Denver Metro, they've hired a team of lobbyists to go after the congressionally directed spending.
Can I just suggest, maybe partnering with, Grilly, because they did hire someone, maybe have those kind of conversations.
Yeah, so what I'd like to kind of speak to that is, with the reduced funding in the SRF, things have become extremely more competitive. And there's a definite strategy that needs to be put in place in deciding how to spend our dollars to go after funding. And that's what some of our folks do. Is we actually look at what those available sources are. We look at what our chances are, and we strategize what is the best spot to put our efforts into with the highest rate of success.
Perfect. Thank you.
You know, and we'll finish the design. We are going to produce construction documents that are fairly standard for use. I mean, it looks like an engineering project. Go to construction with CMAR. You know, we have the flexibility, and one of the ways to manage risk is bidding things at different times. So we made split out work packages for the lagoon rehabilitation, for example, and get it out early so that we can see what we get and we know what we're working towards as we finish the rest of the design. That's a good risk management strategy for that issue. So I think that's all we had, unless you have any questions. And again, I apologize for
You don't
the,
need to apologize.
cupping my hand to my ear and all that.
Any other questions, comments?
I got
Good.
some questions.
Good.
The only one I can remember.
Fred, speak up. Or
the-
bring it
the-
closer.
The only one I can remember, I got, because I got interrupted several times while I was trying to look through this material. So,
Okay.
is the concerns I have for the water apparently leaking out of the ditch. So I'm wondering if we're gonna look at addressing that maybe with,
The concern for what water?
I got that one, Jose. So, there, in the future, and Robbie, speak if I'm wrong, there's 3 trains out there right now. Those are the 3 rectangular things with the wall, everything. In the future, there will likely be a 4th train. And that 4th train is obviously gonna be the south side, exactly where the Evans ditch is right now. So we won't, maybe not build it now, but we will plan for the relocation and the piping of the Evans ditch south of its current location in the vicinity of where the trains are right now. That's part of what Brian will do with the site development team.
And we actually identified that as a risk, is the ditch needing to either relocate it or at least line it.
Yeah.
So,
And in all likelihood, we'll probably pipe it, cause then we can actually put the trail right on top of the ditch rather than on the side of the ditch, which reduces the space of the ditch. So that gives us more room for other things. So that would be considered as part of the design overall package. Cause this project is we have to think out to 2042 is what we're planning, is our plan, years. So in the first 5 years, there'll be something done, but then there'll be more improvements over the next 10 years after that.
well, that's one of the big concerns that I found in this. There was a couple other ones, but well,
Go
I'll
ahead.
have to dig through it again.
Oh, I don't remember.
I'll have to dig through it again.
Okay.
But it sounds like, since you put them in the report, that they're going to be addressed.
Well, and if it comes up, like Jose said, we have a risk register that we've established, and it's gonna be updated on a regular basis, and it's gonna assign, what the possibility of that risk is, what the cost of that risk is, what the impact of the project, and then how do we mitigate it? If we can mitigate it, we take the risk, say the risk multiplies up to a 20, and we get it down to a 2. That's incredible. So then that risk is eliminated during design. It doesn't come up with during construction. We have to think about staging. Where do we stage all this stuff when we're building it? How does Robbie stay operating while we're building it? And so one of the things these guys are going to do is they're going to actually design in a 3D environment. So you're going to actually literally be a walkthrough and bump heads in a virtual environment on pipes. So, got to move that one. And so that's kind of thing these guys are going to do for us with the technology that they have and the expertise that they have.
we had a meeting with our lead designer, the BIM guy today. And he's coming out to normally we don't bring the designer out to the kickoff meeting, but he's coming because he wants to show you how we're gonna use that tool and
So
how
I can bump heads virtually.
valuable it can be.
What is an
So,
ideal timeline and time frame for this?
I'm sorry,
What is an ideal timeline and time frame for this?
what is the,
Ideal
Timeline, I think from a timing perspective, it's probably gonna be a full year in
Yeah.
design.
Okay.
And then, once we get to one of the first things we're gonna do is we're gonna bring several members of the team, including Ditesco. We're gonna meet with the 208 board, and then we're gonna meet with CDPHE, and if potentially, we're gonna meet with both of them at the same time. To make sure that we understand what they want, how they want it presented, and that's the way we go forward when we submit the package. Because when they get the package in a way that they understand it, the way they like to see it, it makes their review easier, and it makes our job a whole lot smoother. So that's gonna be one of the first steps, right after the kickoff. The kickoff meeting will be to bring the team together as a whole. We'll probably be in one of the bigger conference room, and if you're interested, it's gonna be on February 7th. It will probably start at 9 o'clock in the morning, and burritos will be provided. And at that point, we're gonna talk about what everybody's goals are, what everybody's role is in the project, and what their job is, and how they're supposed to communicate back and forth within the team, and to keep everybody abreast. And then our job, Robbie and mine, is to just keep things going together with Ditesco and keep things on a straight and narrow as we move forward. And if there are questions, if there are concerns, we're gonna raise them with these guys, we're gonna bring them to the table and just get them solved. And if we can't solve it, we'll figure out a plan to solve it when it does happen. Because a wise man once told me, I'll pay for risk when it happens, but not if it happens.
I have a question. So, this timeline that you have here, I know it's verification and then data collection. During the data collection, can we receive like the data that is being used in an effort to create the design. The reason why I asked is just to ensure that the data looks, I mean, not that we're gonna probably provide as much guidance on that, because you all know best, but just to be able to see what those numbers look like prior to heading to design.
Yeah, I mean,
The data collection is gonna be, geotechnical is gonna be drill holes in the ground and see what the soils, where the groundwater is. On the environmental side, I'll let you speak to the environmental.
yeah, there's going to be chemical analyses the other piece of data is just all of the as-built and as-constructed information that you have.
I think when
I think she's talking about population.
yeah, I want to see more
Numbers.
of the numbers
She wants
versus
to
like
see-
all
yeah.
the logistics.
She want, that's what she, yeah,
Right,
I think
thank
that's
you.
what she's
And
getting
the
at.
reason why is just because, again, we're here for those reasons. And so
Uh-huh.
I think I would love for council to be able to see that data, the numbers, prior to heading to design. So at least we can see and feel comfortable with how it's heading.
I hear you, and I guarantee you, we will touch base on your growth projections, your areas, and verify in the design on the capacity numbers with you before we proceed.
Any other additional questions, comments? I don't have anything else. Thank you guys so much for being here. We really look forward to
Hey,
partnering
thank
with
you for having us and thank you for trusting us to do this.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very
Swan
much.
song too.
Yep.
I said it'd be your swan song too.
No, I got a few more to go. I got a few more. I'm not as old as Jose.
Yeah. All right, well, thank you guys. We really appreciate it. for being out here.
From CU in 78.
That's what I was still in high school.
78.
78,
Then you partied with Fred.
78, I was 4.
I wasn't born yet.
I don't want you to meet my wife, because that will mean I'm working for another 6 years.
I feel young.
It's all right. I'm gonna give them 2 minutes anyway. All right, well, we got 18 minutes, so we'll take an 18-minute break. We'll start promptly at 7, so.